Bandwidth for this podcast is brought to you by Ideate Software. Be sure to check out all of their great Revit applications designed to increase your productivity.
We are starting BIM Thoughts, and BIM Thinking's our game, and BIM Thoughts is our name. Yeah, that's it. Huh. Well, you've made it. We've made it. Let's get started. We have a great episode in store. We want to learn all about all sorts of things today, and we have Dana DeFilippi and the ever-popular Carl Storms. We have David Haynes, who you probably have all met one time at a conference. And we have, oh my goodness, Glynnis. Good golly. If I don't screw up a name, it's not an episode.
I was going to offer you Gladys,
But it's not Gladys, it's Glynnis Patterson.
Mm-hmm.
You're both from IDA. So, Glynnis,
Bill.
Define yourself.
I didn't realize it was that kind of podcast, Bill.
Oh, yeah, it is. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's my favorite question.
It's funny. It's the end of my day here, and I'm looking out my window, and I'm thinking about all the other aspects of my life because the trees are in bloom and everything. But my work life, which is, I suppose, what we want to hear about, is
hear about anything.
My existence is here in Morristown, New Jersey.
Okay.
Just west of New York City, 25 miles, and yet at the same time, I work with a great team of people kind of in lots of different parts of the world, including all of you who are on different parts of the country. But I work with a great group of people that are like myself. I'm a licensed architect, and we are not building buildings, but we have a lot of the same loves that architects have, which is in creating things. And our team is really meticulous and really cares about the details of putting together software. A lot of the people on my team are architects and engineer types, and we thrive on creating things that we think of as being beautifully put together, perhaps like your cars. But My role at Ideate Software is I'm the director of software development, which means that a big part of my job is interpreting what people are saying about the problems they're having with technology, and specifically within the BIM context, and turning that into software that's easy to use and solves significant problems.
And your software is easy to use. And it does solve significant problems.
Well, thank you.
It's I must say, though, that your software has really, I think, single-handedly has slowed down people learning how to use Dynamo.
In fact, if there's a way to do it in BIMLink or other Ideate tools, I won't write a Dynamo script. Like, why would I?
Yeah, it's already done. And it's
coming from Dynamo. That should mean something.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a high bar for sure. Yeah, we're actually going to be having a webinar soon on talking about kind of our data management tools and Dynamo, and sort of talking about the place for each of those things, because I do think there is a place, certainly for Dynamo, that's a great tool to solve a lot of sort of one-off challenges, particularly challenges that relate to sort of complex geometries. But yeah, I would agree. We try to crush a lot of those really annoying problems that other people have used Dynamo for, but it's really not as efficient.
I think that in BIM we have breadcrumbs, right? I think that we need to understand things little by little, kind of in baby step ways, right?
So and baby steps to the door.
Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, sheet indexes just are so limited in Revit, right? Like being able to see all the sequences and schedule all your revisions and all that. BIMLink can do it all, right? Like it shows you that it's accessible in the API. So, kind of branching from like, okay, I'm limited by this Revit schedule, but BIMLink can do it. I'm going to learn BIMLink. And then
we baby steps through the hallway.
And then, oh my goodness, wow. BIMLink has access to the API that Revit natively does not. I wonder how I can access that.
Yes.
Right? And then you start to understand, okay, well, BIMLink isn't great for, I don't know, I can't even think of something right now. But then you start to get maybe like an advanced workflow that you want to just be able to press play. You don't want to necessarily export or, what have you, like occupancy, for example. The workflow that I've developed with Dynamo. Why I learned Dynamo, because it was easier for me to just press a button than have to export and do formulas in Excel, and etc. I just wanted to do the formulas for me automatically within the Dynamo interface. So I think it's kind of like a breadcrumb baby step mentality. That's how I kind of made my way through the API, if you will.
I'm going to squirrel here for a minute. So I'm looking at your fabulous page, and you have a little graph up top in the banner.
Yeah.
You should change that banner to be a Dynamo script that launches YouTube to your channel.
All right. That is a serious squirrel.
That was a serious squirrel. Speaking of squirrels, David Haynes, define yourself.
Well, thank you, Bill. I will get you back one day. My name's David Haynes, and my title at Ideate is Director. But presently, I'm doing Director of Special Projects at Ideate. And we're going to be talking about one of my special projects that I did. And I, like Glynnis, am a recovering architect. I'm a recovering contractor, believe it or not, and a recovering developer. So I'm recovering from a lot of different things. Sort of where my passions lie in the world is all about data, believe it or not. And so, though this particular topic isn't high on the data level, I've really pushed our data capacity at Ideate to dealing with how the data is pulled. And that goes back to our first product at Ideate Software, which was Ideate BIMLink, which was all about getting data in and out of Excel so many years ago. It reached its 10th year anniversary just recently. So anyway, and I live in a small town north of Seattle called Anacortes, Washington, almost within spitting distance of the Canadian border.
So this special project, what is this special project you want to tell us all about?
So the special project that I've been working with Glynnis Patterson on is called Localization, in which what we're trying to do is we're trying to take all of our software and localize it, as it's called, into 5 different languages, the 5 not most popular, but the ones that Revit is really focused on, which is French, Spanish, German, Japanese, and Chinese simplified.
What about Boston?
No Wicked. There's no Wicked anywhere in there. Sorry.
No Wicked. How about Canadian? Okay.
No Oot and a Boot. So none of that.
No Oot and a Boot.
No Oot and a Boot.
Well, we were going to have Carl be the beta tester for that one when we bring that one online. Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
For sure. Take payment in Tim Hortons gift cards. That's right.
And so you might ask the question, why would we want to do that, right? Why did we do this again?
Yeah, I don't know. We were sitting around and COVID had just begun, and I think
it's like, hey, let's do something tedious.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. I mean, it really had been on our list for so long. We kept pushing it off. And
well, it seems like an easy thing to do. You just throw it all in Google Translate and you're done.
Yeah, David, how about that? How did that work?
That really didn't work very well. And I'll give you the simplest example we came up with, and then I'll tell you a quick sort of joke we've been passing back and forth. So the simplest one is you put sheet into Google Translate, and you will get items such as like a bed sheet, or you put in window like you would use, and it will give you window. It gives you different words than Revit technology uses. And so Google Translate is a interesting thing, and we did use it to discuss certain variations, but it turned out that it was woefully inadequate for a technology software, and I'm talking about Revit, as well as how then we touch Revit through Ideate Software. The funny part of the story is Glynnis and I have been joking that sooner or later, one of the translated words we're going to use will not be appropriate in the language that it's been translated to as we move from certain words we don't use. But that's the real thing is about not using Google Translate was we really struggled with the technological or the building technology words. So So Glynnis, besides the COVID, we must have had some other reasons, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Wait! You got to tell us the funny story.
Well, the funny story is that Glynnis and I've been joking about which one of the, like it's now into the 1,000 different words in one of the languages is going to turn out to be inappropriate in that language.
Oh, that's the funny story.
Yeah. So we're waiting for that moment in time.
Yeah, that would be the sheets.
That would be the sheets.
Yeah. Well, it won't be it'll be almost as embarrassing as the error that we found just the other day. We're still in beta testing on all this localization work. And fortunately, we have a great group of people kind of around the world that are proofing all this work for us. And our person over in Shanghai let us know that we had inadvertently swapped the Japanese and the Chinese in part of our software.
Oops.
Yeah. And so David and I and the rest of the team, we are slowly getting better at identifying the characters and recognizing whether they're just at a very basic level. Which language is this? We asked you guys, we gave you a little fun prep for this.
You did. That was nice.
And which is, we told you guys how to turn Revit into Japanese Revit by just changing the shortcut. But when you do that, you realize just how hard it is to navigate just Revit, something that you're familiar with every day.
Right.
The tabs are the same, but it's really a struggle. And we've, as David said, we've been selling our software for more than 10 years now. We have customers around the world, right? So those customers are using their native language and they're looking at the English. And we were starting to get questions from people in other countries in their own languages, and sort of really coming to appreciate the challenge of trying to wade through English if it's not your native language. And really, and I'm going to say this, Carl, your countrymen in the other part of your country are very keen on communicating in French. In particular, more so than a lot of our customers in France. And so I think they were, the Montreal citizens were pushing us also, to make our software available in French so that they could work in their native language.
Absolutely.
So now that you are doing that and getting ready to go, now you got to think about what about support people for technical support?
Yeah, the tech support is a challenge, and we have a couple. The David's laughing at our Google Translate challenges, but you can use that, and it's a little bit of a help on tech support. Right. We also found a great app called Yandex where we can take screenshots in different languages, and it'll do the OCR, but in that language.
Oh,
it is really fantastic. I was skeptical.
Google Lens.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I could see using Google Lens as like a check.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, we all have Google Translate on our phones now. Sometimes you hold your phone up to the screen in the Chinese or the Japanese Revit, and then it'll translate live, what that character is. So you can, understand what you're looking at. Well, I guess, we've just lately been running into more of our customers coming to us with translation-related work. And, back to your question about sort of the why, I do think that more and more of our customers are either have collaborators in other countries or are, working with globally. And, one of the earliest BIM Link sort of aha moments for me, I know, was when, I can't remember which company it was, but when, a company came to us and said, hey, it's great, Glynnis, you can use BIM Link and export out all the, door data and change the door data and bring it back in. But, could you do the same thing with text? And, at the time I was just, light bulb did not connect immediately. And I was like, well, why the heck would you want to do that? And the answer was because we want to export the text and translate it and bring it back in so that we can deliver in that other language. And that
that's interesting.
Yeah. So here's a quiz for you all.
Okay, I'm ready.
One of the a customer, I think it was a customer in the UK recently, came to us and said, we've built, they're actually a manufacturer of medical devices. And they have a set of shop drawings that they've put together. It's about 12 sheets or so. And they needed to convert that set in Revit into 12 different languages. And so,
Oof.
yeah, so we were kind of going through that as a process with them and helping them out a little bit. And one of the things that really was interesting about it was trying to identify all the different sort of aspects within Revit that really constitute text, because BIMly can export all the text, right? And you can translate that and bring it back in. But that, in looking at the sheet set, that was sort of one, maybe 25% of the overall sort of text that you see. So the quiz is, what are the other sort of data categories that represent text in a Revit project that we'd also have to translate?
Well, it'd be the text in some of the families, I would think, like up and down for the staircases.
Yes, there are some things in families. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, obviously, like the project browser, the properties, the type properties, any of the pop-ups.
Well, this is not in the UI though. This is actually in your deliverable, right? But you're right about the type properties. In some instances, those do display, right? They can display in a tag, or they could display in a schedule, right?
And then you have your fields.
Exactly.
Fields that automatically put the date in, for example.
Mm-hmm. Well, you guys are missing a couple data categories.
All right, I've come up with a couple.
You have. You're missing about 3 right now.
3.
Mm-hmm. So think about all the things that you would see on a sheet set in your project that are text things that aren't actually text and aren't properties of families that would need to be translated in this case.
Or fields, because I already said that one.
Well, what do you mean by fields?
Like fields in the schedules. When you do the schedules and it does yes or no.
Yeah, all the stuff that you would see in a schedule, the
Right.
schedule data. Yeah, there's a couple more. These were, and what we were doing is we were giving them, okay, here's the next data category, you have to translate it, and then they would produce it and PDF it or Bluebeam it, and then we would look and just see what was still in English, and we would convert it to XXX so you could see real clearly what hadn't been translated.
Scale,
dimensions, actually.
Dimensions, yeah.
Dimensions sometimes have a text.
What does dimensions have that is different other than millimeter and inches?
Well, sometimes, especially in like shop drawings, maybe, you might be writing like, maximum or you might have a little word as part of the text. String.
Well, and tags don't count because that's the same as schedule data.
Right? Correct. Yep, you're good on that one. Yep. Just the sheets and the views themselves have text in them.
The viewport itself has a view title, which is also schedule data.
Well, no, that's actually, yes, it's view data. So we had to actually export the view data. And then rooms. There were a lot of like room tags that also needed to be translated. So we ended up with about 7 different data categories that needed to be managed so that the entire set could be comprehensively translated.
So we had this problem, Bill, and we didn't know what to do. We tried the Google Translate, and that sort of failed on us. So
no, that wouldn't work.
Yeah, so we ended up finding, believe it or not, a translation partner.
Really? Somebody who knows the languages.
Knows the languages, had some experience dealing with the factory and doing some translation work. And we were able to leverage them. But it was really part of this, and we've been discussing kind of the outcome. It was really a classic project management process. And that was interesting because without the project management structure underneath, I think we would have taken longer to get it done and we would have had more problem. And
I would have totally thought that you would work with companies that work in the Revit of different languages, and have them be your beta testers.
Yeah, initially we started there actually. Before David got involved in helping us manage the bigger project, we did kind of an early project, which was we did actually contract, or not even contract, we worked with a couple key people in Japan. We have a partner in France, so they've always sort of given us translations. But we actually had some help from Autodesk in Japanese just to kind of wade through and understand how hard it was going to be. So we actually initially translated three of our softwares into Japanese, and that was incredibly eye-opening. And in that case, they were people who understood Revit, and
that helps.
so that was incredibly helpful, because then we didn't have the problem that David mentioned earlier, where they knew intimately sort of what we were talking about, including just even the nitty gritty. Like we have, warning messages about, something doesn't work right. And, 90% of the time, you're never going to see that little tiny error message, but they all have to be translated. So then you get into debates about, well, what is
I didn't
this?
even
What is
think
the
about
nuance?
warnings.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, the warnings in Explorer, Dana, they automatically translate.
Oh, wow.
Some of, like if you reopened your Japanese version of Revit and looked at Explorer, you have the
okay, I guess that makes sense, because it's Revit API that's making that translation, not Ideate. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so some of that we got kind of for free, if you will.
So a question I have then, with all of this, that we've sort of discovered that we moved past Google Translate, got some real partners to help us with the translation. But what about the slang? What about the things that don't translate? And an example, there's a video of YouTube somewhere we're inundated with these, where it was English. It was North American English and British English talking about a car. Windscreen versus windscreen, boot versus trunk, hood versus bonnet.
Yep.
All mean the same thing.
Yeah.
All translate to something completely different. So how did you deal with that process?
So I'll start off, Glynnis, with the easy part, and I'll leave you the tough part as always. So the easy part is the magical part about those language versions of Revit is that they've translated some of the typical Revit words correctly. And we made an internal decision whether we agreed with how Autodesk Revit in French used the word grid. I'll use that as an example. We were going to follow along whether the localization partner agreed or even the beta testers agreed. So we had some paths, as Glynnis has kind of talked about, also some paths to follow. And that's where I think we got very lucky with our localization partner. They were very on top of, as part of this project management, and I hate to bring it back to that, but it really started there, is that in the kickoff meeting, I made an agreement with them that they were to ask the questions as soon as they had them. And I promised them a 24-hour turnaround, one business day, if I could answer it. And I'd let them know if I had to go back to the software developers at Ideate Software, and then it would be a 2-day. What that did is they became then more keen on these nuances. And the fact that I could get them the answers back quickly, like I know all of your owners do, made it so the process didn't get drugged down in well, we haven't heard back from you, so we just went on. And so we got very lucky with the localization partner. They took their job incredibly seriously as far as these nuances in lingo. So Glynnis, add on to what your experience has been too.
I think that was a great sort of summary of it. I think there were some really fun situations where we realized, just looking at the data that David was getting back, where, the French, the German, the Chinese, and the Japanese all sort of seem to be sort of falling in line with each other. And then we would notice the Spanish, and the Spanish would just be so different. And we would just sort of delve into, well, why is this one different? And, just got the sense, to your point, Carl, that, there is a lot of nuance in language, and that Spanish translator had a lot of opinions, but we did have a lengthy conversation about, in one of our products, Style Manager has a lot of words that we've sort of had to make up, or the example, we're calling everything a style, even though it's not really a style. Like there's object styles and there's line styles, but then there's line patterns. They're not really styles. But anyway, there was a lot of quibbling about some of the use of the words, and in particular, we have a button that says analyze, and you think, okay, well, how hard could it be to translate the word analyze? But our German beta tester came back and said, hey, your translators got the word wrong. Like they're picking this word, and it's a word that is used in like chemistry.
Wow.
So in science. So it was too scientific. And so we had to go back and forth about the nuance of what does it mean to analyze. And in fact, ours was a verb, just a single verb, but the Germans really wanted like a noun and a verb. Like they tend to want, they don't like the idea of just using a single word to represent something. So almost every button came back and there was like, well, there's 3 words now in your button where there was just 1 before, and now it's word wrapping and it looks funny, and then we have to change the UI. So there were some cases where we really had to talk about the nuance of the word, but also fit it into our user interface.
Yeah.
So that was a fun
Especially
challenge.
German.
Yeah. German is like easily 33% bigger for every word.
So with the translators and with the beta testers, really our goal for this first run is not 100%, meaning we realize we're not going to get it 100% right. And so we're very, as always at Ideate, interested when we put out the localization for our users to come back and have that discussion of a word or a phrase that may not still hit the mark. Exactly. And like with many things in life, what I call something and what you call something, we may both be right, we may both be wrong, if you know what I'm driving after with that statement. So there'll be some back and forth.
Some people go out for beer, some people go out for brews.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So not to pull us away from the adult beverage conversation, because I do love a good adult beverage, but to bring back around to the localization conversation, have we mentioned what we're starting with? You mentioned that you didn't want to be 100% perfect that first time through, but what languages are we localizing to start off with?
French, Spanish, German, Japanese, and Chinese simplified.
Nice.
And why did you choose those?
Well, I think French was obvious for us. We've had a partner in France for many, many years, and our Canadian friends were clamoring for it. So for us, that was a real obvious one. German customers would pretty much call and say, we're not going to buy your product until it's in German. And we heard they were very vocal. So those two were really driven by outside forces. And then I think for the Japanese, that is an emerging market per Autodesk and per data that we have. So that's a Revit emerging market. I think Chinese, I'm not sure if we actually had a really compelling one. I think if we just thought if we're doing Japanese, we might as well handle all the, or not all of them, but the other major character-based language. And then Spanish, obviously, there's just so many countries in the world that use Spanish. We did actually, when we worked with the translator company, one of the questions they asked us was, which flavor of Spanish do you want to do, and what's the tone of the language in your UI? But for the Spanish, we chose the Latin American Spanish.
Yeah.
And that was recommended to us by Autodesk. We had some nice feedback early on from Autodesk about sort of how to proceed with our first localization efforts. They were really helpful to us.
Well, yeah, you got to stick close to what Autodesk does in Revit.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Because then it's your product doesn't fit.
Right. And Revit is available. Revit itself is localized into, I don't know, approximately, how many languages, David? Do you remember how many languages? It's like 7 or 6 languages.
Yeah, it's under 10, I know.
Yeah, maybe not.
Really? I thought it would have been more than that.
There's different levels of localization, if you will. There's like the switch that I told you guys to use, to convert your Revit into Japanese. Those, I think there's only about 9 of them. Then additionally, there is content that does install that goes beyond that. And so that's sort of, they're making, headway, I think, with some of those other languages. But for example, Dutch is not available as a language. And I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, like Portuguese and Spanish and Italian, French and German, Chinese, Japanese, and Russian.
Yes. I've pulled it up on Autodesk website. It's French, German, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Polish, Spanish, simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, Portuguese, Russian, and Czech.
Czech, that's right, Czech. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the whole Northern European countries don't have a localized version.
Yeah.
So the Finns and the Swedes and the Danish folks are out of luck right for now.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. I always learn a lot on these BIM Thoughts. It's a good podcast. I should listen to it more. Dana, you got a final thought?
Well, for those of you who do not have Ideate, definitely go out, look at their tools. They have not just, languages and BIM link. They also have Explorer, they have Sticky, they have Style Manager, they have Ideate apps, which come with a whole bunch of really awesome tools. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge cheerleader of theirs, despite being a Dynamo person. So definitely go check them out. We'll have all of the links down below. They have wonderful webinars that you can watch live or watch the recorded version that I promote internally as well. I don't create my own internal videos for Ideate because Ideate does it for me. It's great.
That's wonderful.
It is wonderful. Ideate's wonderful. Their user interface is great. Super easy to use. That's my final thought. Carl, do you have a final thought?
I would just piggyback on what you said, Dana, about the Ideate tools and the UI, the user experience specifically. Having great content and being able to get you from point A to point B to do something, whatever it is, is a big portion of what you need. But if it's not intuitive, if it's not user friendly, and if it doesn't look good, people aren't going to use it. And Ideate has all that in spades. So, so I think that that's a big differentiator, which is a big word. It was on my toilet paper this morning.
Well, that was a pretty good penultimate thought there, Carl.
Glynnis, David, do you have a final thought?
Yeah, David, you've got to have.
I've got a final thought before Glynnis does hers. Is you were talking about the videos and the training. We've hooked up with Eaglepoint software to have all our videos up on there. So if you have, if any of you listening out there have Eaglepoint, just ask your customer service person to turn on Ideate Software, and you'll have all our videos within Eaglepoint. So that's my final.
How about that?
They are the pinnacle at that.
Yep.
Well, my final thought. First of all, thank you for having us, and thanks for the fun conversation. It was great. I really appreciate hearing your kind words, Carl and Dana and Bill. But really, I think what makes our software great is all the wonderful people that contribute their ideas. We have a really robust group of people around the world that give us their thoughts and feedback and design ideas, whether it's about UI or just which word we should be using in our, and that matters. So we're really, really grateful for our customers that take the time to help us improve and have a great user experience. So we could not do that without our customers, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And stay safe and continue to make great software.
I'm not ever popular?
Well, you're infamous. Okay. Infamous. You're a YouTube star now.
Yeah, the great and wonderful Dynamo BIM.
Dynamo BIM. Mm-hmm. How's Dynamo BIM going?
I'm having a good time. I don't know whether I think I'm getting some good comments, but I'm having a good time. And I think that's all that matters.
That's the key.
That's all that matters. How long does it take you to edit your episode? Or do you just go through it in one take and you're done?
It depends on the episode. Really? I'm sure Carl knows very, very well that it depends on the episode, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Carl being the editor of BIM Thoughts that we love so much.
Yes. And we thank him for that.
We value him endlessly,
Mm-hmm.
especially knowing what it is to edit these things.
Right.
I would say, you know, if it's just me in the video, then I try to practice and get it in one take. But that obviously isn't really
that never
possible.
happens because the computer never agrees with you.
Exactly.
Or you speed it up when it's thinking.
So it actually takes way longer if it's just me, because I feel like it's a little bit more casual and off the cuff when it's with somebody else. I'm not going to be like, okay, wait, let's stop and re-say that. So I'm not going to put them through that.
No, I don't blame you whatsoever.
If nothing else, just recording it probably takes less, obviously, and then the editing probably, I can only edit out so much.
Right.
I mean, what about you? You put together, your Bill's workbench.
My little cars. It takes me way too long to edit.
Really? Well, you probably have a lot of moving parts.
I have a lot of moving parts in those cars. Yes. I have a camera that sits over top of the workbench, and I record everything in 4K. And then each segment or each part of the build, because you do one part, and then you have to wait for the paint to dry or something else to happen or the paint to come off. So that's all one thing. And so there are 16 different steps that I have outlined. So each step has a number.
I bet you are really methodical. Just about
I really got methodical in this because I don't do just one car at a time. I'll do like 4 or 5 cars at a time. And so I will take them all apart and record that and then strip the paint off and record that. So I have to have a good naming thing in order to make that work. But so then I have to edit it. And it takes me a good 1.5 to 2 hours to edit one of those. Because I have to go through it over and over again to take out all the other parts so I can get it down to a reasonable time. And then storage is an issue, always, because an episode will be almost 100 gigs of files, if you could believe that.
That's crazy. How many cameras do you have going?
I have 2 cameras going at a time.
Well, that's probably it right there. You have doubled the MP4s.
And they're both 4K. And they're both going at the same time, so that if I make a mistake, I can just cut over to the other camera.
Goodness gracious. And I bet your OCD actually helps you in the end, right? Like you being so, methodical and, having all the steps outlined and numbered and nomenclature, all of that.
It's all CDO, actually.
CDO, that's right, of course.
Right, because you have to, it's so bad, it's alphabetized.
Do you know what really helps me with my OCD and methodical tendencies?
No.
Ideate.
Really? Ideate Software?
Ideate Software. Nice segue.
We need to get them on the podcast because they're nice enough to sponsor our bandwidth. And so we thought we would say, hey, since you're sponsoring the bandwidth, why don't we get you on? And that's what we have.